Every decision you've ever made ends in death and misery. People die, I stop you. You'll just break out and do it again. Here's your look at the brand new McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse Arkham City Batman. When his parents were gunned down in front of him, young Bruce Wayne resolved to rid Gotham City of the criminal element that took their lives. He trained extensively to achieve mental and physical perfection, in addition to mastering martial arts, detective techniques, and criminal psychology. Dressing as a bat to prey on criminals' fears, Batman fights crime with the aid of specialized gadgets and vehicles, operating out of a secret Batcave below Wayne Manor. Before we look at bats, I'd like to thank the folks over at McFarlane Toys that did provide this sample of the new Batman Arkham City Batman that we could have a look at in this video. Grabbing down the tape measure just to see how tall the figure stands. I'm going to start things first with inches. I don't know why we always seem to start with inches, but it just feels right. So we're going to start with inches. You're looking at the figure in this case, counting the tips of his very long ears at 6 3/4 of an inch tall, or Batman's just about 17.5 centimeters in height. And what about other Arkham Batmans? Here to bring in a couple right now for comparisons. This is what now the Batman Arkham City looks like next to the Arkham Asylum Batman. Apologies, though, this is the Arkham Asylum Batman that came packaged along with the Joker, so you'll notice that he does have the additional green and the brown on the costume that wasn't present on the original Arkham Asylum Batman, but it's using the same mold still nonetheless, and it's probably the best way to compare the figures because these two are closest in resembling the same similar types of costumes and cowl, with one notable change that I really like about the Arkham City Batman. Then here's what he also looks like next to the Arkham Knight Batman. Definitely a different armor altogether. I do like the Arkham Knight Batman a lot more than I like the Arkham Asylum Batman. The eyes were a little bit more smaller, and I liked also the designing of his suit. Now, obviously, when we're comparing it, the Arkham City Batman looks the closest to the Arkham Asylum and looks very drastically different against the Arkham Knight Batman, all the figures we've looked at before. The neat thing about this wave is not only do I feel we're getting a superior-looking Batman than the previously released Batman Arkham Asylum one, but we're also getting, in this case, build-a-figure parts to build Solomon Grundy. Yes. So we're going to start things off first with the legs that come included with Batman. We're going to resume the rest of the reviews of the other three figures, Ra's al Ghul, Penguin, and Catwoman. Maybe not necessarily in that order, but you only need 4 figures to build Solomon Grundy. Not 6. Not 8. 10 would be way too much. But I do actually like that McFarlane's team actually reduces the size of their waves. So if you are interested to build Solomon Grundy, you don't have to commit to multiple figures outside of 4. Only enough just to get the legs, the torso, the arms, and the head. That's it. Well, that's all you really need to build Solomon Grundy anyways. We're going to get down to the legs, looking at the legs at least that come included with Batman in second. First, though, the figure comes included with a trading card. In this case, they actually have used source material, not figure photography. You have an image here from Batman Arkham City. That's a decent-looking Batman suit as well. It's not as armored maybe necessarily as the Arkham Knight Batman, but still a neat-looking armor. And, of course, on the back there, it's the same image, slightly smaller in the corner there. Real name is Bruce Wayne, obviously. And then there's like sort of a paragraph, well, a paragraph and a half that you can either pause and read for yourself. Don't tell anybody. It's the same thing I read at the beginning of this video as well. I'm going to put that card to the side. The figure also comes included with a display stand. Not much different here in the display stand department things. Got the DC logo down below here. And then, of course, one singular peg that's going to attach the underside of Batman's feet. I would definitely say in this case, Batman may need a stand. Why do you say that? Stay tuned. We'll talk more about that in a second. So we'll move the stand out of the way, and then, of course, Batman comes included with Grundy's feet. Just to stand these up as best I can. Maybe we'll have to rest them against one another. Grundy's feet aren't that much taller, really. That's not a fair comparison, sorry. Batman's feet, Grundy's feet don't actually come that much taller than where Batman's are, but other than just the fact that they are bigger, wider, and, of course, bigger, smellier-looking feet. Ooh. But you got the feet and the legs, of course, that attach to the feet that come included with Batman. Not going to be doing much of anything other than playing the drums, so we're going to put those to the side. We'll come back to those, of course, as we look at the rest of the 3 figures. And, of course, the one other accessory, which I have for some reason over here, the figure also comes included with a grapple gun. Now, the grapple gun, while it doesn't have a removable hook and it doesn't have any paint, it's a nicely detailed looking grapple gun. There's the one side. There's what the other side looks like. Really just mirror flips to one another. They don't do anything different mold-wise from one side to the other. I do wish that they could have added just a little bit of paint, but I mean, it's a nice looking grapple gun nonetheless. You can take the grapple gun and fit it into either one of Batman's hands. The plastic on the hands are more of a harder variety, but you shouldn't have too much issue. I say too much issue and then it drops out of his hand. You shouldn't have too much issue, though, getting it into Batman's hands. Now, I have it on this one side. You can choose for yourself to have it on the other side if you want. That's what Batman looks like with the grapple gun. Obviously, there's no place to put it on the actual utility belt. Utility belt, in this case, is only for show. Faux show. That's it. Going to go and remove that, put that to the side. And now getting a closer look at Batman. I really like the look of this one quite a lot. The one thing that I didn't like about... Actually, that's not true. There's a couple of things I didn't like about the Arkham Asylum Batman, and that's more based on the character's design in the game. I'm going to bring him in right now. Ear-wise, the ears are slightly shorter here, you can see in the Arkham City variety, than what we got with the Arkham Asylum. The Arkham Asylum, unfortunately, just the way I had it packaged away, the ears have come pretty close together there. I'm going to probably want to heat and soften those up a little bit and see if I can move them away from one another. But the other thing I really didn't like about the Arkham Asylum Batman, not stemming from my dislike of the figure, but the way it was carried over from the game design, I never liked Batman really with pupils. Not me. Never liked him. And of course, the one thing about the Arkham Asylum Batman, even though this is the dirtier version of the two, this one does have the pupils. Not a fan of that. Head sculpt was good, but I never really liked the idea of Batman having visible pupils in his cowl. They have certainly done away with that when it comes to the Arkham City version of Batman. Cowl is very similar. It still has the pointed nose in such the same way. As you can see, they sort of square off the side of his cowl around his jaw. This one actually gives you more of a triangular shape similar to Bale's, but this is actually more straight down. It does make his face look a little more squared, and maybe one of the problems also I had with it, because they did have a triangular cut where his mouth opens like this, it made his face or his head seem very long. I mean, it was already long to start off with, but I think proportionately, this one looks definitely a lot better. This one also is a good figure too, if you weren't crazy about the design of the video game version of Batman, that this still fills in a nice looking Batman figure to put on a shelf that doesn't have to necessarily be connected to the video game. If you want to just have it on the shelf as your go-to Batman, by all means you can do that. The skin tone is about the same. The lips are slightly darker here in the Arkham City version of Batman. But again, I really like the idea that his eyes are white. Some may find that that's a thing that turns you off the idea of wanting to get this figure, because maybe you want to see the pupils in his eyes. I guess you could technically take a marker, go in there and dab a few pupils. But for me, I actually prefer him looking pupil-less, white eyes instead. And again, this one does have, because his head isn't so tapered off to the top, and also because, of course, I've had this guy just only out of the packaging for about an hour now. Obviously, his ears are still nice and straight. Body-wise, they're not too much different from one another. The armor is very similarly shared between the two. You can see, like, a lot of the same armor is used here. I mean, if you look at the mesh on the side of his torso, it seems pretty similar, as well as the arms. The gauntlets are, though, slightly different. Not only the spikes that stick out from the gauntlets, but also you can see as well, the Arkham City Batman does have this rectangular shape, sort of more of an oval shape there on the top, whereas this Batman actually from Arkham Asylum had more of the smoother gauntlet. One thing also that they have done is made the emblem on his bat suit a little bit bigger. Now, because this is lifted from, or I should say it's a separate sculpt on top of his torso, leads me to believe that they probably just reused the torso and then just recast and retooled a new emblem on the top, as this one is a lot wider, it's a lot thicker than this one right here. But yeah, it looks like the biceps are the same, the shoulders are the same. Cape is, though, slightly different. There's a little less wrinkles, a lot less folds, flipping around so you can see it from the back. This cape is, for the Arkham Asylum version, is a little more straighter. The one from Arkham City, as you can see, sways off slightly to the side. This one is also a lot more shinier. The one from Arkham City, as you can see, is a little bit more matte of a finish. This one curls over, and I know I'm not really usually a big fan when it comes to curled over capes, but this one actually does look still pretty good. It's not curled off too crazy to the one side, only curled over on the one side and slightly curled in, though, on the other. When also, we can bring back in the other figure, leg-wise. Legs and torso seem the same. I almost for a second think that the utility belt is also identical. Obviously, this one would have gone the route of the metallic gold. This one goes more of a kind of a softer, creamer yellow. But it looks like the pockets are in the same place. Of course, when we get down to the boots seem also to be the same as well. So the only thing that really they have changed is the cape, the cowl, obviously, and the emblem that's on the front of his torso, which isn't that far off, really, from the game design either. Again, one last look at the capes, the size of the figures. If given the choice now, I mean, obviously, I've already now collected the Arkham Asylum and the Arkham Knight version of Batman. I actually think, like, this one of the three is my favorite. It keeps things pretty consistent to a classic-looking Batman. It doesn't make him too SWAT-like either, where his suit is made up of multiple panels. It keeps the consistent coloring of the gray, the black, and of course you've got kind of an off-gold color for his utility belt. Classic-looking Batman in a modernized take. That sounded really good, actually. For the articulation here on Batman Arkham from Arkham City, his head rotates all the way around on a ball joint. It does look up to that much. It does look down to that much. And of course, you can also rock it back and forth as well. The figure does also have shoulder hinges. There's the hinges right there on the inside. Even though the cape does flap over the shoulders, you can still very easily move his arms outward. And you can, of course, take the arms, move them forward. You can move them back. There is a swivel at the bicep. There is only a single hinge on the elbows because they are using the same original mold. And there's hand articulation as well. You can take the hands, rotate them all the way around. Some nice additional silver. Did I add that earlier when we looked at the figure? No, we didn't. We didn't talk about that. A little bit of silver there also on his fingers. The upper torso is on a ball joint. Very nice ball joint, in fact. Lower torso, though it's concealed behind his utility belt, is also, there's a ball joint there as well. The legs do split out. The lower skirting, or not lower skirting, the lower trunks are a softer plastic, but it seems like they've actually made them a little fuller. Just again, compare it with the Batman before. I guess they're not that much different. It looks like they've almost allotted for a little bit more space, but it probably is just more my eyes playing tricks on me. But the legs do like hinge out. There's the ratchet joints for the legs. You take the legs and move them forward. You can move them back. Swivel slightly on the top of the thigh. Double hinge on the knee. No articulation here for the boot. It seems more just a continuation. Likely what they probably have done here too, as you can see. Yeah, this is just a continuation of, maybe it is actually a separate piece, but it's not separate in the sense that you can rotate it back and forth. And then comes to his ankles. Now, I did say earlier that the figure did need to use a display stand. The reasoning why I say that is he sort of has like two ways of either displaying his legs. When you have his foot one way, you see it goes too high on an angle. And of course, the figure is going to lean forward. When you have it down, it almost has it too far on a down angle. You almost kind of have to find a sweet spot in the middle without actually hitting that ratchet. Because you'll feel it right away when you move the leg up. I don't know if you can even hear that. Did you hear that? Or was that the crack of my thumb? Do that again. You hear that? So there's a ratchet joint, and you almost have to find something in the middle of that. That's the sweet spot. That's the place that's going to allow Batman to stand. And of course, if you do have any difficult time to get the figure to stand, well, of course, that's what the display stand's for. So go ahead just again and reach that, grab it from the side, attach it to the bottoms of his feet. His peg holes on the undersides of both his feet, by the way. And then you got Batman. A lot easier, somewhat a lot easier to stand. Short of the issues maybe I have with the ankles, it's just, again, more of a ratcheted joint that they did end up using for it. Again, it is pretty much the same remold, or it is a remold to the one that we got here from the Arkham Asylum. Apologies again that I used this one and not the original. Again, where I feel the changes were definitely improved upon is the head sculpt. Whether you like pupils in your Batman's eyes or not, I prefer to lean more to the idea of him being pupilless. Pupilless. The white eyes, like I was saying, work a little bit better, I find, for the mold. You may prefer to have pupils in the eyes, which is not definitely the route that they went with when it came to this releasing his figure, but it's essentially like really the same figure with improvements, I think, that make the figure a lot better than what we got before with the Arkham Asylum version. Well, we've made little to no progress completing the Batman Arkham City Solomon Grundy. You know, it is to be expected after all. It's only the first figure of the 4-figure wave with still promsies that we are going to be looking at the Ra's al Ghul, the Penguin, and the Catwoman in upcoming reviews. And over those other 3 reviews, we will be completing Solomon Grundy, and dare I even say, we may even be looking at Solomon Grundy in his own standalone review. This marks the first and only time we've gotten ourselves a Solomon Grundy from McFarlane's team, and I hope it's not the last either. This, of course, will be ramblings I'll be talking about when we look at the review of Solomon Grundy, but I hope at some point we are going to be getting a classic Grundy as well down the road. Back to Batman, though. The improvements that I have to make and mention about the Batman here are, I think, obvious. The one I saw, no pun intended, that I didn't like about the other Arkham Asylum Batman was the fact that he had visible pupils. A lot of people did like that in the design of Batman from the Arkham Asylum games, but to be honest, I never really liked the idea of Batman having visible eyes. For me, Batman should always have white eyes. Unless it's in a real movie. Maybe in a real movie it would look a little weird that Batman has white eyes. We did see that scene where Bale's Batman does have white eyes because he's obviously using the gun, but I don't know. I prefer, at least in the comics and video game source material, to have Batman with white eyes, and this one fits the bill nicely by doing away with the pupils altogether. If you were still bothered by the idea that there's no peepers in those eye holes, then technically you could take yourself, I guess, a pen and drop in a few dots there to represent his pupils, but for me, I like the idea of leaving it out altogether. And while the rest of the body is still pretty much the same mold as what we got before with the Arkham Asylum Batman, the improvements on just the head sculpt alone and the few little tweaks that they've done, like, for example, giving him a better cape and slightly varied gauntlets, make what I still feel to be a better looking Batman than the Arkham Asylum one we got before. What do you guys think of the figure? Let me know down below in the comments section. Maybe a better debate question, ask you, the viewing audience. How do you prefer to have Batman? With pupils or without? How strange of a question is that? I'd like to, though, thank the folks over at McFarlane Toys that did provide the sample of the new Batman Arkham City Batman, with promsies again that we will be looking at Ra's al Ghul, the Penguin, and the Catwoman in upcoming reviews. The key to making sure that you're not missing out on any of that, and of course as we build Solomon Grundy, is first of all, if you like this video, throw it a solid by hitting a like. If you enjoyed the content and certainly want to stick around for more, then make sure you hit the subscribe button down below and turn on the bell notification. And while, of course, yeah, we have wrapped up the review of Batman, one figure down, we are going to be looking at the rest of the 3 figures from the new Batman Arkham City wave. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.